Juve, here are the million for Jadon Sancho is the big title on Tutto Sport. Where are these million coming from? Are we happy about it? And then the second topic of today's video, the striker. Because if it starts to be more and more difficult for Kolo Muani, in the list there are some alternatives, and we are not speaking only about Rasmus Hojlund. Ciao Juventini of the world, my name is Giuseppe, welcome back on the channel, I hope you are all doing well. It's Monday, start of a new week that will lead us towards the kickoff, officially for the Bianconeri as well, of season 25-26, because as you already know, on Thursday we are back officially in La Continassa. If you didn't yet, because it's Monday, you start putting a maximum of like, don't forget to subscribe, and let's make it the Nabit, the Hype Monday, for the people on YouTube that are already allowed in that beta version to hype the video. You know it, in the comment section you swipe on the right side and you can hype the video, because more you hype, more we are climbing the ranking and we can actually be viral. That's what we hope for the channel. Now that we said that, where are these million coming from? From two sources as soon as possible. The first one, while I was watching yesterday the Belgium Super Cup final between Union and Bruges, well, there was a breaking news yesterday, because Mbangula was a done deal to Werder Bremen in Germany. What are the details? 10 million fixed plus 3 million on bonus, and we are potentially speaking about Juventus inserting a clause of the resale for a percentage, but at the moment it has not been confirmed. It could be 10% for future resale. Let's see and follow it. And I know that we are opening a huge big controversy. I have my own opinion, I have my own idea, because it's a player that I'm following since he actually arrived in Torino on the 9th of January 2020, right before COVID, before all the youth academy were blocked, and then we start seeing him playing with the under 17, under 19, Primavera, next gen, to finally actually arrive not only in the Retiro last year in Herzogenaurach by Thiago Motta, but also receiving a chance in the beginning of the season and being confirmed. Also, he was the one that scored that first official goal of the season. Not that we scored a lot of goals, but anyway, he was the real first one against Como. I'm sure you all remember. Surprising the most, and also surprising Beppe, to be honest, because I told you, player that is coming from Anderlecht, a player that is coming from Brussels, from Belgium, well, has always an eye from me, because you know that I'm living in that country, so it's always really nice to see a player that is coming from your own country that is doing well at Juve. It's a player that I was following in the beginning, where actually he did really well with the youth academy starting. He confirmed himself, especially in the season 22-23, where he scored in all competition 9 goals with 9 assists. So it was a player that I was really following with a lot of curiosity. Then going towards the next gen, well, he couldn't really affirm him, because he had some difficulties with first an injury, difficult to adapt himself. He was also really young when he arrived there. Also, professional football, much more difficult than the youth academy, where he lost a bit himself. When he was called up by Thiago Motta, well, I was first of all surprised that he was confirmed, but because we were still doing Mercato, I was thinking, well, it's a player that will be there for 2-3 games, going back to the next gen when we finish our Mercato. He was able to convince not only Thiago Motta, not only the staff of Juve, but also us, the fans, that were really surprised. I was really surprised by his season. I believe that he overperformed, and that's why I never expected for some Mbangula 30-40 million euro, like some fans are asking today. 10 million plus 3 of bonus, is that enough? No. I always told you, everything under the 15 million euro, according to me, are not enough, are absolutely not acceptable, should not be acceptable for a player 21 years old that already made his first debut with the Belgium national team, first team, where in the past he was absolutely not known. So beautiful. Scored 4 goals with Juve, 5 assists. He scored in different competitions like the Champions League, like Serie A. So it's a player that actually overperformed in a way, yes, but on the other side, the season that he did, well, should be more than 15 million euro. It's not that he was a starter at Juve, because if you are looking at the details, he played, yes, a lot of games, but still played under 1,000 minutes. So it was not a starter, not for Thiago Motta, not, and especially not for Tudor, that played him, I believe, 4 minutes in all the games at disposal. It was a player that was out of the plans from Igor Tudor also for the upcoming season. But are we surprised about the sale of Mbangula? If you're not speaking about the million, just the sale of the player, honestly, no. Because you remember that we were also covering here the winter transfer market, where Sam was already linked with a lot of clubs, Bundesliga, Premier League, but also some Italian clubs that were asking information, and Juventus was not closing the door, not with Cristiano Giuntoli and not now with Damien Comolli. So it's a player I'm not surprised, because it was a pure plus Valenza, and probably Juventus assessing the player because they have data since 5 years, maybe they came to the conclusion that being out of the plans of Tudor, player that probably overperformed, it was the moment now to sell him, because probably in the next months, in the next season, staying at Juve and not finding actually the same minutes as last year, or not being able to replicate it, well, the value would have dropped. So it was the occasion for Juve to sell him. And on that one, I can even agree. I didn't see Mbangula as a starter of season 25-26. As a rotational player entering, why not? But in that 3-4-2-1, maybe not. A player that loves to go from the wing and entering, while Tudor in that 3-4-2-1 is actually asking some different skills from players. So having a player young that needs some minutes, that need to reaffirm him now after that surprising season on the bench just there rotting, would have been a total disaster, also because Juve needs some money. But I'm not happy, of course, with the money that we are requesting for the player, that are absolutely not enough. I think that Juventus could have asked much more. Who is to blame on that one? I believe ourselves. If we're looking at the player, we were already selling him virtually in the winter. We put him out of the team nearly with Tudor that didn't play him. You remember Manchester City, not even on the bench. We were already accepting from Nottingham Forest 8 million euro for the Belgian player, where we were happy about. Well, if you accept 8 million euro, don't expect any team on the world that is coming for 20, 30 or 40 million euro. This is just impossible, because the starting price will be 8 million euro to start negotiating with the player. Juventus at the end is able to take 10 fix immediately, cash money, plus 3 of bonus, plus potentially a 10% of the resale. Can we say that it's a better deal than before the 30th of June? Absolutely yes. Juventus was able to increase the request and the demands, which is much better than initially. On the other side, I tell you, at 30 million euro is far from what we could have gone for. I was not expecting 25. I think that this is a bit overpriced, estimated by us Juve fans. What could have been the right price for Sam? I believe that you could have gone for 18-20 million euro. Is it a pity? It's always a pity when a young player that started in the youth academy of under 17 is about to leave. Then on the other side, well guys, if we want to continue to invest, or if we want to start to invest, the money needs to come from somewhere. We spoke about it yesterday in the video. Mercato is blocked. So not only some Mbangula, where things can really accelerate also in an official way with the agent that could potentially be here already in Torino today, with the player traveling on Tuesday, maybe doing the medicals on Wednesday. So this week they are really closing officially the deal. A contract for 5 years for the Belgian player with Werder Bremen. The other one, the next one, will be Team Weah, that only wants Marseille. They agreed on the value, 15 million euro. Also there, could we have asked for a bit more? Could be. They agreed on everything except of one detail that is important. And Marseille that wants to take him on loan with an obligation to buy, which Juve is even okay with, but they would prefer cash immediately, because it's 15. If it's for actually dealing with 1 more year the obligation, maybe Juventus will have request a bit more than the 15. If they can have the 15 immediately, like we will receive the money immediately for Mbangula, Juventus could potentially close immediately. Now, this week already with Weah, that is already traveling in the beginning of the week to be there at Marseille, that is not that far from Juve. So that's the second player that could leave. And with that money, we know it, Sancho subito, Sancho immediately. Tudor is hoping to have a gift, to have a beautiful surprise, to have some enthusiasm, to have some energy, to have a new face already on Thursday. Not only Sancho, but also officially the confirmation of a Conceição that should arrive in the beginning of the week. But these are players that he wants to have in La Continassa. Jonathan David, Sancho, Conceição, Kenan Yildiz is string as the crazy guy in Marbella before coming back. Well, we have potentially already an upgrade in our offensive line. With who? With Kolo Muani? No, and we'll speak about that in a second. But with Dusan Vlahovic. Dusan Vlahovic that will not be out of the team. Now, coming back on the initial discussion about Mbangula. You will tell me, Beppe, Juventus is not able to sell. Juventus is not able to sell. Juventus can't sell, and I agree with you. This is always something that I told you. We are not able to ask the value that we can see, even the value on transfer market, and that is 14 million euro for Mbangula. We are selling him for 10 plus 3. We all know about the profit case. We all know that Juventus needs a special attention to everything. We all know, but anyway, it's a fact that Juventus can't sell. On the other side, if we are comparing with Atalanta, that is asking for Palestra 25 million euro, we are asking ourselves, but how is it possible that Atalanta is asking 25 million euro for a player that played 9 games in Serie A with 200 minutes only, that played on top of that 6 games in the different competition in first team, so he doesn't even reach 400 minutes. Why are they asking 25 million euro? Why we are not even able to ask for 15 million euro for Mbangula? Something is not right there. Well, it's really simple. It's because they are selling players that are appetible on the Mercato. It's because they are selling players with a request on the Mercato. Players that they could potentially even continue to play, and they see the potential growth. They see potential starters in them. And Juventus is actually selling players that we are not having in our plans, and that's making a huge big difference, because the clubs that are signing, they know that Mbangula is not in the plans. They know that they can start negotiating because Juventus is in a rush to sell. Look at Lukman. Well, Atalanta says 50 million euro. That's the price that we want. Otherwise, he plays because he's a fantastic player, because he was a starter, because he's the one that won the the African Cup as the best player, the Ballon d'Or of Africa, let's say, in last year. So it's a player that has a lot of requests. Inter, Premier League clubs, 50 million euro. And that's easier when you are asking your request, when you're selling players of the first team, like, for example, Koopmanners, or if you are selling Retegui, much easier. Juventus is not selling their number 1 players, their starting players, like Thuram, for example, that Paris Saint-Germain is on. If you're looking at the latest rumors, they really want to go already this summer with the sporting director, Campos, that is already interested in a player this summer. He wants to put the big money. And I start reading some people, some Juventini are saying, look, everyone can be sold for the right price. If we are asking 120, 125, 150 million for a French player, he can leave. I don't believe that Paris Saint-Germain will come there, but Juventus has no intention to sell the player. Otherwise, he will go for 100 million euro. Like Kenan Yildiz could leave for 100 million euro. Juventus doesn't do that. So it's much easier to sell when you are selling your stars, your players that should be untouchable, which Juventus is not doing, and Atalanta has a total different philosophy. Now, of course, Atalanta, they have the luxury to actually have no financial problems. They are selling for big money, and they have a fantastic, beautiful scout area that is able to go and spot the next one. Like, for example, yesterday when I was watching Union against Bruges, I spotted Sartori, sporting director of Bologna, that was already spotting some players. Is it from Union? Is it from Bruges? I have absolutely no idea. And this is where Juventus should be really strong at, in identifying and buying cheap the next player to actually grow the value of the team. We go towards the next topic. It is a striker. We know it. I don't want to repeat it too much here. Comoli, Paris Saint-Germain, per l'attaccante, braccio di ferro sulla formula. They have some problems on the formula for Kolo Muani with Paris Saint-Germain. We know it. Paris Saint-Germain have some requests from Premier League teams for the French player. They want cash as soon as possible, and Juventus is not able to do it. Now, Juventus, they will continue to push for Kolo Muani. No, guys, what I was reading yesterday in the comment section, the players that we were hearing about are not first targets of Juve. Juve is really having only one name, only one target, and it is Kolo Muani. Also because we are blocked with the situation Dusan Vlahovic. Some people are already saying it could be that the second striker of Juve becomes actually the most paid player from total Serie A. Because we have no solution for him, he could potentially even stay there. But Juventus is obliged to look for other alternative, because if Vlahovic is not deciding himself in a rush, and we cannot invest and salary and the value for Kolo Muani, and we can't accelerate, and he's leaving, well, Juventus, in the case that Dusan Vlahovic could potentially leave, you are obliged to look for something else. And who are the players on that list? Well, we have, like we said yesterday, Rasmus Hojlund. Rasmus Hojlund for a simple reason, because or he can enter in a swap for Douglas Luiz, which would not be interesting because you know that I don't like the player that much. I don't believe that the player could be a starter of Juve, especially not now, even if he's young, even if he showed a bit at Atalanta. But I believe that the 6 months that he did at Atalanta were already his peak, that he will not continue to progress, that if a club that is signing him, or even if he stays at Manchester United, if he goes back to the 6 months of Atalanta, this is the peak of Rasmus Hojlund. So signing him permanently, I would not see that as a really good option. If you're swapping him with Douglas Luiz and you keep the player forever, I would not see him as a good option. A loan could be an idea, because, and that's where we are going towards. Juventus is looking for a potential loan, because if you are able to loan him, and you can really see what you do with Dusan Vlahovic later. If he leaves in the last week of the Mercato, you already have your player. You didn't invest the money. Unfortunately, it will not be on Kolo Muani, but it will be on Rasmus Hojlund. And then you can keep that money to reinforce the other roles. Other roles that could be the midfield with Hjulmand, that Juventus is still continuing to track, to monitor, especially if a Douglas Luiz leaves, especially if we are able to let go a Nico Gonzalez, for example. But it's not only Rasmus Hojlund, because Juventus is also looking for alternatives, and that alternative could be potentially Darwin Nunez. We know that some Italian clubs are monitoring. We know that Liverpool invested on the transfer market for other players, Ekitike, for example. They paid a lot of money. So Darwin Nunez could be a player that at the moment the value is 60 million euro that could go on loan. And that's what I'm telling you. Juventus has not these players in their target as primary. Primary objective is Kolo Muani. If it flops and you keep Dusan Vlahovic, you can potentially say to Dusan, we park it and we have alternative on loan players where we are not putting a lot of cash on, players that we are giving a chance, players that we are testing again. The striker number one is Jonathan David, and you do our best to convince us that we want to put that money the next year on you. I remember Kolo Muani, for example, that didn't convince a lot of people before arriving to Juve, and now the Juventini are saying he's the best solution on the market after 6 months with a really beautiful impact with the Bianconeri. And that's where we are in. There is also the name of Sesko, but I really don't believe that Leipzig will let him go on loan. So it's a name a la Rashford, where I don't believe in, and I will tell you even more. I don't even believe that Sesko is a fantastic, great striker. I changed my mind on him in season 24-25. Anyway, let's see. Ragazzi miei, if you enjoyed the video, put a maximum of like, don't forget to subscribe, and let me know what you think about all the players that we mentioned. Grazie, forza, Juve.